What's up, world, and welcome back to another edition of I Mix What I Like here at the Real News Network. I'm Jared Ball in Baltimore. As new generations of activists enter political struggle here in the United States, they enter into a vacuum created by this country's most aggressive repression of revolutionary movements. Assassinations, exile, and long-term political imprisonment have left many of the most seasoned and politically educated revolutionaries incapable of having the requisite influence on successive generations of activists and influence vital to the success of such movements. Our guest in this segment of I Mix What I Like has recently written a number of provocative public commentaries calling to task several prominent and aspiring black leaders and organizations who are beneficiaries of and replicants of what he has called stealth history. Dhoruba Bin Wahad is a former political prisoner and member of both the Black Panther Party and Black Liberation Army, and is one of our strongest political analysts still willing to perform that function. We welcome him to the show. Welcome, Dhoruba, to I Mix What I Like here at the Real News.
Thank you for having me on, Jared.
So you've raised, I think, important critiques here. You know, you were critical of, you've long been critical of the Nation of Islam and its as you've called it, messianic approach to struggle here. You were critical of Al Sharpton, the National Action Network, and of course the new Black Panther Party for its, claiming the logo and name in many ways, but absent the analysis and the programs of the original Black Panther Party. My one question, I would like to get into some of the details of those arguments, but my one question to you initially is, what do you say to those who argue that public critique of other black leaders and organizations that are ostensibly trying to do some good is a flaw? It's a flawed approach and something that holds us back. How do you first address that critique that I know you've heard and that I've heard many times over the years?
Because we're making an assumption that the people that we're supporting and the people that we've failed to critique are actually advancing an agenda of black folks. We're making that assumption because of their pretense, because perception is reality. I mean, we look at organizations and they have these nice uniforms and they seem disciplined and they seem organized. But when you look on the reality, what do we have in terms of political empowerment? Do we have an independent black political party? Do we have an independent political party that represents all of the people who are maligned by empire in the United States, or whether they're immigrants, whether they're Latinos, whether they're gay and lesbian? Do we have this type of political organization given this type of leadership? No. What we have are organizations that parade around and show discipline and give fiery speeches that the right wing uses to organize and raise money with. And on the other hand, when we look in the black community, we look at these organizations, they'll call, like we had a Million Man March and we had a follow-up to the Million Man March. And the issue is not so much that you're calling black folks together. The issue is, what do you do when you do call them together? And also, how do they come together? When you look at and anyone that knows what I'm talking about, any activists in any of these cities know I'm telling the truth. You cannot have unity and don't have principles. When you have an organization, any organization, that wants to claim a national following, a significant influence on the masses, and then it goes into the communities and it calls together all the activists who are actually doing the work on the ground in the community and say, look, we need all to come together in Washington, D.C. on this date and demand A, B, C, and D. And then the organizations go out and they do all of this work. They mobilize the people. They raise funds. They go knocking on the doors to turn people out. These are the activists. These are organizations on the ground who are doing this. This is not the people that's calling for this convocation. They're not doing anything. So when you do wind up with a mass demonstration, they're the ones that's on the stand, they're the ones that's on the podium, and they have no program. They have nothing to offer. They have no strategic vision. They have no analysis. All they do is give you an emotional speech. All they do is rile you up and then tell you to go back to your place and continue to do what you've been doing before you came there. And then it's gone. It's done. It's a done deal.